So welcome to the continuation of our class on government, and today we're going to continue our discussion on the basic concepts and meaning of government. So in our previous video, we looked at the meaning of government. We defined government as an institution of the state. We also defined government as the process or art of governing, and we also said that government is also an academic field of study. So what are the attributes, what are the features, what are the characteristics for which government is known? One of the characteristics of government is personnel. When we talk about personnel, I mean human beings. When you talk about government, government is not the building, government is not the cars, government is not the weapons that you see. Government talks about human beings, personnel, human beings. Human beings make up the government. And it's not one person, it's not two people. You can have up to 10,000 people working in the government of a state or a nation, and put together, all of them, they are the government. Of course, they will usually have the president as the chief executive. That does not mean that the government alone is made up of the president and his cabinet. All the members of the legislature, they are in the government. All the members of the judiciary, they are in the government. Okay? So when you talk about government, you're talking about the entire group of people who have the responsibility of managing the affairs of the state. So personnel is one of the attributes of government, is one of the characteristics for which government is known. You also talk about finance. Money is a very important part of government. One of the attributes or one of the features for which government is known is that they run with finance, they run with money. They have to pay their workers, they have to take care of some projects. All right, so these are like the two most important attributes of government. You can also talk about power, political power. The government needs power in order for people to obey them and do as they say. A government that does not have the political power to enforce obedience will be disregarded by people. So imagine that the government of Nigeria does not have political power. If they say something, nobody will listen to them. For example, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, said that there should be a lockdown in Enugu and Abuja, in Lagos and Abuja, I mean to say, and people complied. And if you don't obey, the government can get you arrested and prosecute you. Just like most of you have heard, one of our celebrities, Funke Akindele, was arrested for violating the lockdown order. Now, that is an example of government having political power. They have the power to make you obey them. If they tell you to do something, you don't have any other choice than to do what they have asked you to do. That is what power is about. Government has power. Government comprises of personnel, the people who work in the government, and then government also runs with money. All right, so let's look at the functions. Why do we need these guys? Why do we have government in a society? What are the functions? What is their work? Why were they created in the first place? Now, for us to understand what the work of government is, we have to understand what is it that they want to achieve. The ultimate objective, the major thing that government wants to achieve in the society is to have orderliness, to have an organized society, so that people can go about their daily activities feeling secure. People can fend for themselves. Okay? So, in a society where there is no government, you could just be going on the road and somebody would take your valuable property from you and nothing will happen. The strong ones will oppress the weak ones. In order to create equality in the society and in order to make sure that there is orderliness, Mr. A does not oppress Mr. B. There has to be a group of people who have the responsibility of taking care of things that have to do with the state. So, one of the functions of government is planning. The government has the responsibility of formulating policies that will help their citizens. Okay? whether those policies are in the educational sector, in the health sector, in the transport sector, in the various areas of the lives of the citizens. The government has the responsibility to formulate policies, to formulate plans. Okay, this is what we plan to do for Nigerians. This is how we plan to carry it out. That is planning. One of the functions of government is planning. That is why some people define government as a group of people through which the will of the state is formulated, expressed, and attained. This simply means that these are the group of people who think for us. They think for us, the citizens. They act for us. They plan for us. They are more like the parents of the society. Think of your parents in the family, the mother and the father. They are responsible for the upbringing and the well-being of the children. They plan for the children. They take care of the children. Okay? So you talk about maintenance of peace and security as one of the most important functions of government. It is the responsibility of the government to make sure that their citizens are safe and secure. Okay, it is their responsibility. Security is one of the most important responsibilities of government. If the citizens of a state, if the citizens of a country are under attack, if they are facing any form of insecurity, the government must stand up and act. That is their job. That is why they are there. Nigerians should be able to sleep in their houses with their two eyes closed. And that is why you see government has been battling different things. They've been fighting Boko Haram. Even when the corona issue came into Nigeria, government had to act. That is why they are there. They are not there for fun. They are there to make sure that their citizens are taken care of and that their citizens feel secure. So security is one of the major objectives of government. Okay? So these are some of the few features and then also some of the functions of government. All right, so moving on, let's also look at some other basic concepts that can be associated with government as a subject. You talk about concepts like power, authority, state, nation, society, and all that. So let's look at all those things and try to find out, is there any difference between all these things? Are they all the same? What exactly do they mean? All right, so you talk about power. Power simply means the ability to control the action of other people by possessing instruments of sanction. The ability to control the actions of others by possessing instruments of sanction. When we say instrument of sanction, what do we mean? It means that you have something you can use to punish them if they don't obey your instructions. It is because of the possession of sanction. That is why we obey power. A good example is when a military man gives you an instruction, you are bound to obey that instruction, not because you like the military man or you are happy with what he asked you to do, but you are not left with much choice. And if you don't do what he asked you to do, he has instruments that he can use to inflict punishment on you. Okay, so that is why you have to obey him. That fear of punishment is what makes you obey. So when you talk about power, power simply means the ability to tell people what to do and make sure they do it because you possess instruments, you possess weapons that you can use to inflict punishment on them if they don't obey you. Okay, and you can talk about various forms of power. You talk about physical power. Physical power is the kind of power you use to do work. Okay, you talk about economic power. Economic power is the type of power you get from controlling economic resources. Let's say you have money. When you have money, you can use your money to control people. For example, if you are working in a company, the reason why the boss will say something and you will not challenge it or you will do it, even though you don't like the way the boss talks to you in the company, you have to obey. You don't have any other choice because he or she has economic power. If you don't do what they asked you to do, you could lose your job. So because you are scared of losing your job, you have to obey them. Economic power. You can also talk about political power. Political power is the type of power that is being exercised by the government. Okay, so that power that makes the government give you an instruction and you obey, that is political power. And that power was given to them by the citizens. when they stood for election, the citizens transferred their sovereignty to them through the ballot box, and they are exercising that sovereignty, that power, on behalf of the people. That is political power. You can also talk about military power. Military power is the type of power you derive by possessing military weapons. Like the example I gave you, why do you fear a soldier? Why do you obey a soldier when he gives you an instruction? Because he has guns, he has knives, he has things he can use to injure you. Okay, so that is military power. Military power is gotten from possession of military weapons. You talk about sources of power. Political power is gotten from the constitution through the ballot box. Okay, so any power that President Buhari exercises, that power was given to him by the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. For example, why would President Buhari say Nigerians that are living in Lagos and Abuja shouldn't come out of their house? Who gave him power to do that? The Constitution. The Constitution gave the president the power to make executive orders during periods of emergency, like the one we find ourselves in. Okay, so that is it. So the Constitution is the source of political power. You can also talk about military power. Where do you get military power from? Just have a gun. If you have a gun, if you have military weapons, you have military power. Okay, so that is it. So let's look at authority. What is authority? Authority is the right to enforce obedience, the right to command obedience. And authority usually relies on moral persuasion. I said authority is the right to make people obey you because it is morally good. Authority relies on moral persuasion. Authority does not rely on force. Take, for example, if you see an elder on the road and that elder gives you an instruction, you could decide not to obey the elder and just go your way. But our tradition teaches us that it is important to obey elders and respect them. So you know, because it is good, not because the elder is going to do anything to you, because it's good to obey elders, you just have to do it. You just have to do it. That is moral persuasion, doing something because it is good. Authority relies on moral persuasion. Authority does not rely on force like power. Authority does not rely on coercion. Authority relies on moral persuasion. Authority makes you do things because they are morally good. Okay, you talk about authority. There are various forms of authority, but one of the most important forms of authority is charismatic authority. Charismatic authority is the kind of authority that a person enjoys because they are very charismatic or they possess wonderful individual attributes. Okay, take for example, if you have a group of people, some of them will be very influential, even though they are not necessarily the leader of the group. Okay, there are people that when they speak, other people listen to them. They may not be the leader. They don't have to be the leader. Why do people listen to them? Maybe because they are very charismatic. Maybe because they are very intelligent. They know how to ginger and persuade other people. So people just feel, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. So whenever they talk, people listen to them. That is charismatic authority. The type of authority you exercise because you possess wonderful individual attributes. And you know that book of the Bible they call the book of Judges? You see a lot of individuals, even though nobody expressly made them the kings of Israel, but because maybe they are wonderful soldiers, they are very strong people. You see people like Samson. Nobody made Samson the king of Israel. You see people like Gideon, people like Jephthah, all those guys. Somebody like Deborah. Nobody made her the queen of Israel. Nobody made her the ruler of Israel. They were not monarchs. They were just individuals that were very charismatic. And because they were charismatic, people followed their leading. That is charismatic authority. So from this brief definition, you could see that there is a very important difference between power and authority. Power relies on coercion. I mean, you don't have to do what you are asked to do because you like it or because it is good. I mean, if an army man, if a soldier sees you on the road and says, do this or do that, I want you to do frog jump, I want you to do push-ups, do 100 push-ups. Even if you are not healthy, even if you don't like it, you just have to do it because this guy can punish you. He has guns. I mean, he has guns. He can bring out his guns and just boom. I mean, God forbid. I don't want us to get there. All right. So you just have to do what the guy asks you to do. But then authority, You don't obey authority because you are afraid of getting punished. You just obey authority because, our pastor said obey your elders. Our bishop said obey your elders. Our tradition said obey your elders. That's why you obey authority. Moral persuasion. You do things because they are good, not because you are scared of being punished. No. If you look at those guys in the Bible, if Israelites followed Gideon or followed Jephthah, not because if they don't follow them, they will kill them. No, that's because, Jephthah has been leading us to war and we think he's a great leader. So it's good to support him and follow him. That's why they follow Jephthah. All right. So moving on, let's look at states, nation, and society. Now, when you talk about society simply is any community of people who share common ties. Whenever you see human beings, a community, when you hear community doesn't necessarily mean your village. Whenever you see human beings in any place and they share common ties, maybe common history, common language, common culture, that's a society. A society is a group of human beings, a community of people who share common ties. Okay? So, then that society can be a state or a nation. Now, a state is a community of people occupying a definite geographical territory with an independent government that is completely free from external control. Now, there are some important things I need you to understand about a state. It is not every geographical location that is a state. And please remember that when we mention states here, we are not talking about component regions like Enugu State, Lagos State, Kaduna State. We are not talking about component regions. We are talking about sovereign nations. One of the most important attributes of a state is sovereignty. Sovereignty simply means ability to decide what you want. So, if a group of people have the ability to decide what they want without anybody from outside telling them what to do, what not to do, then they are a state. They are an independent country. Okay, so the word sovereignty is synonymous with independence. Whenever you have a society that is independent from every form of external influence, then they are a state. So sovereignty is a very important attribute of a state. And you must have human beings too. I mean, when we talk about states, we're not talking about mountains and oceans and rivers. We're talking about human beings, population. And those human beings must occupy a definite geographical territory. They must live in a particular place on the face of the earth. So, for example, if I give you the map of Africa, you can identify where Nigeria is located, definite geographical territory. Okay? And so those are some of the important attributes of a state. A state is also permanent. A state is always there. No leave, no transfer. Always there. Human beings will be given birth to. Human beings will die. The state is still there. Nigerian state is still there. A lot of Nigerians have died. Nigeria as a nation hasn't died. If Jesus tarries, Nigerian nation will remain there. Okay, so a state is permanent. A state is also recognized by other states that, oh, this country is independent. Okay, so when you come to the UN is made up of different independent countries, and they all recognize each other as independent countries, and they respect each other as independent countries. Nigeria respects Ghana, Ghana respects Nigeria. Recognition, they recognize each other as independent. They respect the independence of each other. They respect the sovereign authority of each other. All right? Then we talk about a nation. A nation is also a community of people. A nation is also a society. Okay, and a nation usually refers to a group of people who share common cultural ties. Whenever you hear that word nation, a nation refers to a group of people who share common cultural ties. Now, there are two important distinctions. There are two important differences between a nation and a state. Those differences are, number one, a state can be homogeneous or heterogeneous. A nation must be homogeneous. What do I mean by homogeneous or heterogeneous? The population that makes up a state, they can speak the same language, they can come from the same place, they can come from the same ethnic group, or they may not come from the same ethnic group. Okay? So a state can be homogeneous or heterogeneous. A nation must be homogeneous. When you refer to a community of people as a nation, when you talk about the Igbo nation, they must share common ethnicity, common tradition, common ancestry, common history. A nation must share common ethnicity. A state must not. They may be homogeneous, they may be heterogeneous. Homogeneous means everybody that makes up the population, the whole population, they come from one tribe. Heterogeneous means they don't come from the same tribe. So a state can be homogeneous or heterogeneous, while a nation must be homogeneous. Secondly, a state must be politically independent. A nation may be independent or dependent. For example, Nigeria is a state. Nigeria is independent. You can also talk about the Yoruba nation, the Igbo nation. The Igbos, they are a nation because they are a community of people. They share common ancestry, they share common history, they share common cultural ties, common language. But the Igbos are not independent. The Yorubas are not independent. You talk about the Hausa nation. The Hausas are not independent. So remember, I said a state must be sovereign, must be independent. A nation can be dependent or independent. And I gave you an example. I said the Nigerian state is independent, the Igbo nation is not independent. So these are some of the basic differences of a state and a nation. Please remember that both state and nation comprises of human beings, but there are certain differences between them. And somebody will ask, so is Nigeria a state or a nation? I mean, think about it. Everybody in Nigeria, do we speak the same language? No. Do we come from the same place? Hell no. Do we share common history? No. I mean, the Hausa man and the Yoruba man and the Igbo man, they don't have anything in common. They don't speak the same language. So, what do you think? Are we a heterogeneous society or a homogeneous society? We are a heterogeneous society. The word homo means one. Heta means more than one, two and above. So a homogeneous society is a society that shares common history and ethnicity. A heterogeneous society is a society that is made up of many different tribes that don't even have anything in common. So Nigeria is definitely a state and a heterogeneous society. See you in the next video.